On this episode, we feature a man with 35 years of energy medicine, founder of the Quantum Touch Organization, international speaker for chiropractors and medical conferences, author of Quantum Touch of the Power to Heal, Quantum Touch 2.0, The New Human, and Your Healing Hands, The Polarity. I'd like to welcome Richard Gordon to the show. How you doing, Richard?
Hey, thank you for having me. That's a sort of an old bio because I've been 45 years now and I've got two more books beyond those.
Wow.
Yeah.
45 years. What are
Yeah.
the other two books?
Well, I wrote The Secret Nature of Matter, which explores the intersection of matter and consciousness in an empirical way and shows that objects can all hold energy and intention and demonstrate that it's true by doing two things that are considered physiologically impossible simultaneously. And then I recently wrote a book called Hacking the Law of Attraction for Effortless Manifestations, which I figured out why the law of attraction was taught like looking through the wrong side of a telescope, and how struggle was built into the way that it was being taught and how to do it effortlessly, and to be able to use energy healing in attracting reality, as well as being able to accelerate the healing process. So I've had a lot of breakthroughs, plus finding the emotional causes of health conditions, and then how people can process those emotions. So not only did the conditions disappear, but people feel grateful for having had the condition, that the body had the ability to be sick, not as a dysfunction, but a communication from their own higher consciousness. So I got kind of a lot of different pieces of things that I've discovered.
Now you mentioned emotional, as far as sickness goes, is that I've heard this not often, but I've heard it before. Is that a common thing with people that have like chronic illness and stuff like that?
Well, I would say that it's probably only about 99.999% true. That we live in a psychosomatic reality where everything we're experiencing emotionally but don't let ourselves feel is going to come out in the reality. Now, it could come out as a health condition, it could come out as a relationship condition, it could come out as a financial problem or a success problem. But the whole reality is a mirror of consciousness. And because people are terrified of the intensity of their emotions, this is universal, by the way, for humans, they don't want to have to think about their feelings, they don't have to feel the feelings, and they certainly don't want to have to put the two together and create a synergy. And so it took me about 30 years to figure this process out. I woke up one morning with severe flu symptoms, a deep gurgling chest cough, high fever, sore throat, bones aching, numb, just feeling as bad as I knew how to feel. And an hour later, I was sitting in the sun, drinking a cup of coffee, going, oh my God, I was sick this morning. But what I had done in the meantime was I had figured out the emotional cause of it. I let myself cry and get angry and just rage for 5 minutes or so. And then I took a shower, got dressed, and was sitting in the sun drinking coffee, and I had no flu symptoms whatsoever. And that led me on the journey. And we call this process self-created health, realizing that we are responsible for our own health. And as much as people want to throw the responsibility to the experts and the physicians and the other people, it's not really fair, because we can find these things. So there's a method that we use in this where we ask people simple interrogative questions, and they don't realize it, but when they're answering the questions, they're painting a perfect, exquisite, three-dimensional picture of emotions they didn't want to feel, that they're feeling in their body as a health condition. And it's uncanny. In 3 minutes or 20 minutes, we find exactly what the emotional cause is, not so that I know that it's true, but so the person you're working with knows that it's true. So I don't know what's true. I don't know your story. I don't even want to know the story. But your symptoms and emotions and judgments and other things that are happening because you're sick are painting a picture of a set of emotions you didn't want to experience that made you sick. So that's another one of the areas that I've explored.
That's fascinating. Wow. You're talking to someone who has health issues, so that just makes me wonder and makes me a little more curious. I had go ahead.
We could explore it right now if you wanted to take a peek at it, but you don't have to reveal anything particular about your story. but we could figure out probably within 2 or 3 minutes
Really?
some clues. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Let's,
I don't, we don't have to do it now, but we can do it later or whenever.
okay. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So when did you first kind of discover quantum healing and
Well,
this whole,
it's actually called quantum touch.
okay.
Quantum healing is sort of a whole genre of possibilities. Quantum touch is a brand that we teach classes around the world. We've got practitioners in 50 countries doing the work. And I became aware of energy healing probably about 1974 or 1975. And my first book came out in 1978 on polarity therapy. And around the time the book came out, and I was so blown away realizing what we could do with polarity therapy. I wrote this whole book about it that was like a bestseller in 10 languages. But at a few months before the book came out, I met this blasé grandpa who was morbidly obese and telling tall tales, and I didn't believe a word he said about anything. But he demonstrated on my girlfriend who had a massive scoliosis, and I just watched her hips just roll back to alignment in a couple seconds under his hands. And I watched her shoulders and I watched her cranial bones go into alignment. I was completely blown away and assumed he had a rare gift, but I learned how to do his work. And then I took over in his retirement. And then I evolved what we call quantum touch now, and have made a series of outlandish breakthroughs over the years. So 99% of what quantum touch is about is bringing down pain, inflammation, accelerating the healing process, the things you would normally expect. But there's one weird quirk, one little thing that's unexpected. And that is that Bob showed us that we could use energy and intention and cause massive physiological alignment of the hips and the cranial bones. Now that's considered impossible by doctors, chiropractors, and physical therapists, many ilk and osteopaths. They know that, first off, no one can align themselves with a standing balance. You don't need an x-ray to see it. Anybody with 2 minutes of training can see dramatic cases of it. And no one has the ability to do it to themselves, and it can't be a placebo. So we established that this isn't going to happen. They all use force or pressure to cause that alignment. And very few people are even trying to align the cranial bones. I discovered with Bob in 1978 that I could use a touch and energy. We're using breathing and body awareness to use quantum touch. And we're aligning the hips and the cranial bones just with a light touch. It happens kind of automatically. Then about 17 years later, I discovered that I could use breathing body awareness, same technique, but focus on the heart chakra and project the energy to the person and align the hips and the cranial bones without touching them. And then one of my students turned me on to a bone behind the nose and eyes called the sphenoid bone. And if I give the sphenoid a mental turn, I can instantly align the hips and the cranial bones for the rest of a person's life in a few seconds. And then in my book, The Secret Nature of Matter, I discovered that you can take any physical object, glass, plastic, rubber, pebbles, you name it, water, put that same energy intention of causing the alignment. And then if I just touch somebody with that object with intention, I can cause the alignment. So then I found out I could just meditate on my finger and wave my finger and say boing and cause the hips and the cranial bones to spontaneously align in 1 second. And I've taught people to do this. So I went to the University of Arizona and met with a group of scientists one afternoon. And they said, how did you get here? What did you discover? And I told them the story. And they said, well, show us. All right. So I showed them how to measure the hips. And all it is slide up on the sides, come over the top, feel where the bone is, get your eyes level with your hands. And that's and if this side's high, it's not Sesame Street. It's just like, okay, this side looks high to me. It's visible. It's not theoretical. And
Right.
I showed them, and they measured like 7 people. And I was able to align them all in 1 second by touching them with an object I'd meditated on. I say boing, and they are all instantly aligned. And then they all stopped and they threw up their hands and said, all right, there's no doubt in our minds that this works. They had 4 people measuring everybody. Everybody agrees it's high, now it's level, it's high, now it's level, and so forth. And then they bragged about the special equipment that they had, the MRI, CT scans, ultrasound, and such. And then they talked about how they were going to get such accurate measurements, and it would be so exciting, how this is groundbreaking. And then the first guy says, but if I do this, I know I will never receive tenure at the university. And number 2, 3, and 4 said, yeah, doing this would be academic suicide. And then the head professor said, there's probably no university in the United States or Europe open to what I have discovered. And then he said, he compared me to Ignaz Semmelweis, Gregor Mendel, James Lind, William James, Galileo, Giordano Bruno, and all these others who could never be appreciated while they're alive. And then he said, hey, well, good luck. And so there's so many applications of this work. You can use it to slow down the aging process. I'm 73 now, and I don't know it, okay? Because
Don't look it either, bud.
I'm stronger than I've ever been in my life physically. I am on no medications. I'm just take care of, so we don't even know what's possible. And I'm kind of breaking all these boundaries, but at the same time, the boundary that I haven't broken through is the invisibility boundary. So I made the discoveries, but I haven't made it past invisibility. So we're starting to make a documentary now called the Galileo Project. And the idea is, what would happen if you had visible, teachable, paradigm-changing information before the world was ready to see it? And so in scenes so far, I taught some adolescents, some high school, some college students, some doctors, and professional magicians how to do this. And everybody's like blown away. This just works every time. Now, the next part of it, we're going to try to bring in the scientists, the skeptics, and the professors and see how they respond when they see something. So I have this on my wish list, a way to contact Lex Friedman, because he's my #1 choice of an open-minded scientist who's got his viewpoint is very skewed toward materialism. And that's okay. I was too. I started as a materialist and an atheist and a skeptic, and that's where I started from. I totally appreciate it, but I want to be able to get to him and some other leaders of consciousness to teach them how to do this themselves and let them draw the conclusions. I'm not a philosopher, but it's obvious this would change the dominant belief system of Western civilization, change physics and medicine forever. And our identity as human beings to understand that these things are true.
Well, that's one of the problems, though, right? I mean, you mentioned that, some of the professors or scientists that were at the University of Arizona that you were doing this work with had said that it would be career suicide.
That's all it is. It's not a big deal. It's just career suicide.
Because why the cover up? Is it just because of the money, the money issue?
Okay.
Or?
Yeah, it's the money. It comes down to a primary philosophical assumption that everything will be explained with math, physics, and logic. This is called materialism in science. As Rupert Sheldrake so aptly put it, the students seem to pick it up as a form of intellectual osmosis. They come in with any kind of attitude, but kind of come to the realization that, well, we'll explain all of the mysteries of the universe through math, physics, and logic. And as soon as you start showing that love and consciousness has a physical impact on the outer world, well, this is forbidden, it's verboten, it's not acceptable, it's taboo. You're not allowed to go there and show something. But what I have isn't that other people have had out-of-body experiences and 1,000 other ways of showing what I'm showing. It's that I happen to have a visible, teachable, empirically obvious way of doing it in seconds. And it doesn't require thousands of people in a study. You can see it before your eyes right now. So on the set, we had a chiropractor, and my producer's left hip was almost 3 inches higher than her right hip. And the chiropractor measured her. And I waved my finger and said, boing. And she measured it again. It was totally level. And she's like, so what do you think? She says, this is monumental. This is monumental. Because she knows how much force or pressure or work it would take. And what she's going to do is discover in another 2 weeks or so that the alignment is still holding, because once I've aligned somebody, it stays pretty much for the rest of their life. And it is a really basic thing that can be done in seconds. And now I've taken it down to the level where I used to have to run energy through my hands, and the occiput would come into alignment. I just wave my finger and say boing, and it's done. It's like 1 second. I aligned 100 people simultaneously at the Smart Life Forum in Silicon Valley. And, you know, and these were really bright people, but there was no follow-up, no interest. Like, okay, what are the implications? Where can we study this? What does it mean?
Right.
Because if people see something that breaks the model of reality, their fear kicks in, and then they're unwilling to go there.
I think it's fascinating. Now, how do you get to that level that you're on? I mean, is it like just a great spiritual understanding and a understanding of kind of how the universe is not materialistic? I mean,
I'm one of the laziest people I've ever met in my life. But I have came in with a really strong desire to shift consciousness. And then when I learned something, I didn't just accept that, okay, here's a technique that works. Why does it work? How can we make it better? So I'm constantly the tinkerer and the inventor at heart. And so when I learned how to run energy, it took me 17 years, but I finally came there where I go, oh my God, I can project energy from my heart chakra using the same basic technique. And I can test it by aligning the hips and the cranial bones. I can work on any other condition. I did videos where you show how the pain goes down really fast and stuff. It's basic human skills. And I'm not especially wonderful healer or anything. I mean, the definition of a healer, by the way, is someone who was sick and got well. A great healer was very sick and got well quickly. I don't ever heal anybody else. I hold a resonant field that their body matches and entrains to, and then their body and spiritual intelligence does the healing. So I'm not a healer in that regard, but I know how to do the work. I'm not special at it. We have many of my students doing things that I've never seen before or never even heard of before. So, but the deal is I look at anomalies and I'm fascinated. And there's somebody once said that the definition of genius is paying attention to detail. And so I just happened to be looking at something no one else was looking at. So I was fascinated by the fact that I could move bones with a light touch. That just, like, how the hell is that happening? And then as I studied it, no one else was looking at it. I started seeing, oh, I could meditate and cause it, or I could put consciousness into a physical object, you know, or and then I started doing, I did 57 experiments. What if I charge water? And what if I boil the water? And what happens if I do this? And what happens if I burn the paper? And I tried all these simple experiments you can do in your kitchen and made all these discoveries about the intersection of matter and consciousness. Not because I had all these years of college or something, but because I was curious. And I paid attention to detail in an area that other people are ignoring or don't even know exists. So it's very easy to find new things if you're looking in a place other people aren't looking. And you have a stick-with-itness. You just maintain a high level of curiosity. And one great secret I found is if you want to find an answer to a question that's unavailable to you, hold the question over an extended period of time with curiosity and joy. Just, I wonder how that's going to be fixed. I wonder how I'm going to get that one done. And to hold the curiosity and joy and just keep that question like kind of like a gentle desire in your soul, and hold the curiosity and joy. And then sooner or later, you know, the answers appear.
The universe responds.
And that's actually aligned with the law of attraction, the way I've been teaching it, as opposed to the way the others have been doing it. And just to give you a little preview of that, unless you want to explore it further, everybody says, imagine what you want, believe you already have it, live as if it's already true. That's sort of like the guidelines. That's real bad advice, really bad. Because if you're doing that, you're lying to yourself. You don't really have it. And what part of spiritual growth is self-dishonesty a part of? It doesn't even make sense. So I used a different metaphysics. And when COVID hit and my business got shut down, because all the seminars around the world were canceled overnight, I thought, how will I pay my mortgage in 6 months? What I did was I realized I had bought some really crappy stock 14 years previously in this bogus company that was never going to go public or put out a product. They just keep raising money. It's like a Ponzi. So I tried all the logical ways of selling it, contacted other companies, everyone on Twitter and everything else. Nothing was going to work. So I finally had to use magic, because if logic doesn't work, you're up against it. So what I did was I came up with a new metaphysics, and I was able to attract a solution. 3 days later, somebody sends a letter, a physical letter to my business partner from a stranger in New Zealand asking about this stock. A letter in the mail from a stranger in New Zealand. And within 2.5 months, I had about 3.5 years of income by selling some of my stock. So the metaphysics is different than what you're being taught. It's very simple. Can you imagine that there's thousands or millions of possible realities? You could be in Los Angeles tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
You could be. It's not probable. It's not likely. There's no reason for it yet, but it's a possible reality. So we realize that there are thousands of possible realities, even the one where I sold the stock. However unlikely it would be to get a letter from a stranger in New Zealand, that was a possibility. It was nowhere in my consciousness that it could work out that way, but it was there. So what I did was, instead of trying to believe I have something that I don't, which is just crazy metaphysical nonsense, what I did instead was I found the reality where it was already true. And once I had connected to that reality, then I started sending energy to that reality. And then I used my own techniques and I lit that reality up really bright, super strong, till it became like, wow. And then after about 2 minutes, I got the download, and it was like a holy shit download. And the download was very simple. It's loving me. It's more connected to source than I am. It's in a higher level of gratitude and love than I am. Anything that's more connected to source is more real than I am. So manifestation is not taking something from the imagination and making it real. It's taking something from reality and making it into the illusion of physicality. That's a real mind bender for most people. So what I did was I lit up that possible future, and then I got the download. Oh my God, I don't have to do anything. It's loving me. I can just relax and let it love me. And then as I thought about it over the next year or two, I came up with a better metaphor to help people understand it. How much do you have to work? How much do you have to struggle and effort to enjoy a wonderful hot tub on a very cold night? Do you have to do anything? You just receive it. It's just that's right. The energy. Is the energy of receiving. And so what I did, once I had the download, I go, wait a second, that future is loving me. And as if I was in a hot tub, I'm going, And you see, the deal is, I'm not manifesting it. It's already holding a high vibration. It's manifesting me. So what I did was I remembered that future 6 or 20 times a day and just felt the love from that future changing me now.
That's an interesting way to explain it, because I've read a few books on how to self-heal and stuff, and it is more on the lines of you're manifesting it. And I've had a little bit of a struggle with that myself, trying to
work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It's backwards. It's like, if the law of attraction is about allowance and you're the doer, how is that allowing? And then the other thing about health conditions, we're going to jumping around a little bit, but it's perfect, is that as far as I'm concerned, all health conditions with a capital A are due primarily to suppressed anger. Not being in a wonderful space. you didn't get there by not feeling enough awe. You got there by suppressing anger and hurt and rage and resentments and guilt and shame and other vibrations. But if you boil all those down, underneath that deep hurt is a lot of anger. And the anger is an active emotion that needs to be actively expressed and processed. And if you don't get it out actively, you will experience it covertly through health, relationship, or success issues, or some combination thereof. I had one guy come over to my place a couple of years ago. Wow. This guy didn't have a health condition per se, but he had a massive business failure. And it hurt him on such a profound level. And when I tracked it back, we tracked it to 2 other business failures that felt just as bad. And then when we tracked that back, what we saw was this is exactly, 30 words to describe it. All 30 words were a perfect description of something that happened to him when he was 5 years old. Exactly, not hypothetically. His drunken dad would beat up his mom and then beat him up afterwards. I can't even imagine a business failure hurting that much. I can't even conceive of it, but that was his reality. Now, why did he have to keep recreating that experience? Because it was unfinished business in his soul. He had not healed that part of his spirituality, and therefore had to recreate the situation to remind himself, because our top priority for many people is their spiritual growth. And so they'll keep putting themselves through the same experience again and again, not because they're bad or haven't grown or shameful or something. It's because you want to grow so badly that the pronoia of the reality will give you the gift of that trauma again and again and again, like Groundhog Day, until you get it right.
Wow. Now, what are some maybe recommendations or things that you've used, maybe helped people with when it comes to maybe getting rid of anger in a more positive way?
Yeah, there is a whole course that I created, like a weekend course. I've had psychotherapists tell me, why didn't they just teach us this? This is all we really needed to learn. It took me 30 years to figure this out, but we now have people around the world teaching it. You go to the quantumtouch.com website and look up self-created health, or just type in self-created health, and you'll find the instructors teaching it. And what we do is we teach people first off how to find the emotional causes. And there's 7 steps to the process. The first step is just knowing what the cause is. It isn't half the story, it's 1/7 of the story. When you know what the emotional cause is, then there's techniques for releasing hurt, anger, shame, and guilt. That's the primary 4 big ones that hold people in place. And how to change the past, and how to heal the child, how to heal the adolescent, how to heal the young adult, going through processes of hurt release, shame release, anger release, all that stuff. How to transform guilt into its actual real emotion, which is anger. So the self-created health walks people through that step. That's only step 2. Step 3 is the dangerous step, because you can't jump to that step. If you jump to it, you're hurting yourself. And this 3rd step is the insight. Oh my God, I really hurt myself. Yes, dad locked me in the closet or whatever the heck it was, beat me up, but I've been doing it to myself ever since. Step 4 is taking 5 or 10 minutes to feel the depth of remorse from having hurt yourself. Just letting in, oh my God, I did this to me. Now, that can be devastating, but it's only for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and you let it in. And when you get to that point, if you do it properly, you feel unforgivable. Yay, you got there. Because most people don't feel that because they don't let themselves feel. Now, if you get to feeling unforgivable, the bow has been pulled back as far as it can possibly go. And when the arrow gets released, it can go forever. And so now we do a self-forgiveness process that I came up with. And it is an extraordinary process that, the closest thing I can compare it to is, 6 grams of dried mushrooms, where I'm having like, insight, where I realize, oh my God, I've always loved myself, and I take myself back, and the overwhelming sense of forgiveness. It isn't like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. It isn't like that. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, where
it's a deep understanding.
beyond words,
Yeah, and
way beyond language,
you can
way beyond.
definitely get there with mushrooms.
Yeah, I have. Thank you. And I don't recommend it to everybody, but if that's what your path is, by all means, embrace your experience. Don't hold back. Don't hold back. So the next thing was, once you've had that self-forgiveness, it turns into overwhelming self-love, uncontainable self-love, love of higher self, love of God, Goddess, all that is, infinite wow. And then you have gone all the way through the process. Then people's, not only do their symptoms go away, but they're grateful they had had the condition because it showed how they had stopped loving. And that's what self-created health really leads people to. And the book has been delayed because I was going to have one of my uh, prime instructors write it. So it's pushed back about 5 years, but maybe we'll get it out one of these years. And I'll write the forward and the conclusions and, you know, my goodbye parts, but I'll let her do the work because I finished that process and it's time for somebody else to pick it up. And she has all the info.
I think it was a quote, and it may have been in your bio. I don't know if it's a quote directly from you or for someone else, and it's in related to what you're talking about right now. I just kind of want to get your take on it. Intense suffering always feels far too real, yet joy and gratitude feel like a dream.
Yeah, this is the beginning of my Hacking the Law of Attraction book. It took me 3 days to write like 174 words. And that was the beginning of that piece. And this is part of the fact that we live in an illusion. And the more we're suffering, the more real it feels. But the more grateful we are, the more it feels like a dream. And why is this the case? And this is what we go into for the book, is the understanding that the more connected you are, the more dreamlike it seems like. The more connected you are to your higher self, seems like a dream. And then when you start manifesting miracles, it's like you just kind of dreamed it into existence. There was no work involved. There was no effort. There was no struggle. And everybody that's teaching to do the affirmations and the vision boards and walk as if it's true and fake it till you make it, it's such a load of crap. Because how many people have been frustrated trying to use the law of attraction? Almost everybody, but just every so often a miracle slips in and you know it's real. Yeah, you've had those miracles and it slips in somehow. But what I did was I codified it in such a way as to make it so easy and available that you can just access it. Just really no problem at all. It's very, very simple, just like I was kind of walking you through. But the trick is, like, how do you send energy? How do you send love into that new future, and how do you receive it? That's part of it. But what I did with the book was I took about 30 or 40% of the book just to deal with the fact that we have 3 arenas of our life: health, relationship, and successes. And you're probably blocked in one or more of them. So what do we do? It's easy to let, like, if you're good at attracting money, then it's easy to let more money in. But letting more love in, or more health, or whatever it is in, may be very hard. So what I did was I dedicated a huge chunk of the book to how do we process the emotions and how do we start doing the inner work. This is another shortcut to accessing some of the self-created health info, which is, how do we just get there? How do I start releasing that old anger or hurt or shame or guilt? I couldn't cover it in the depth I would for self-created health, but I give a lot of good starts. And on how do we create a new self-image and create new belief systems and new identity to allow and attract things that we couldn't otherwise allow. Because anybody who tells you you can have everything you want is just full of shit. Because we're traumatized. The secret history of the world is 10,000 generations of child abuse. Everyone's traumatized. But how do we heal the trauma? And you can have everything you want in the areas that aren't traumatized. But in the areas that are traumatized, you're limiting yourself, because it's a spiritual gift to your soul to not be receiving all that you want, because you're here to show yourself your boundaries and where you're still broken, so you can feel the pain of the loss or the separation or betrayal or whatever it is, so that you can heal it and get past those points.
Wow, that's deep. Um,
Yeah.
what what inspires you to do this and to have students and this, this, I mean,
Well, I think it's just that I came into this incarnation with a profound desire to have an impact on consciousness on a planetary scale. And I can't do anything about it. It's kind of like you know, born to be a humanitarian on some level. And as much as it pains me sometimes to be dealing with this level of density and insanity and closed-minded arrogance and condescension, it's just what I came for. So it's just who I am. And so whenever I'd find like a really fascinating anomaly that could open the doors to something new, I'd always jump when I saw, hey, what's this what's this light coming through the door? What's this over here? And as I'd study it, I would learn more about it and then eventually write about it and create. So I've got 5 books out now, but 6 would be self-created health. And I have no idea what the next 4 are going to be. Although it's been prophesized back in 1980 that I would write 10 of them. And my documentary was prophesized too. So I'm still looking for what those other 4 subjects would be, because every book I've written was based on a breakthrough.
prophesized by who? Psychic or?
Yeah, I had a number of private readings with a consciousness named Lazarus starting in 1980, and they were 100% accurate emotionally. And they could even hear my thoughts in a room of 1,000 people in real time, and they showed me this many times. So it was really accurate, and I could go on for hours about it, but it's been a big influence on me, and it's given me a metaphysical perspective with which to make other discoveries. It's not that they told me the secrets, it's that I had a perspective that I could filter things through to create Quantum Touch being a very clean organization, or to be able to understand the intersection of matter and consciousness in a way that other people may not perceive, or to be able to do the things that I've done or find emotional causes. It felt like I had like a PhD course in metaphysical psychology by studying with Lazarus for 15 years. But that was useful in creating self-created health and understanding how to work with this stuff once I found the problem. So there was like that 15 years of education was sort of the backbone of what I built from it. Lazarus didn't tell anybody what to think, but they taught us more how to think. And I've used that how to think to make other discoveries. And there'll be more coming. I just don't know what they are yet.
You talked of, perhaps it's kind of like your soul's journey to be on this path that you're on. I
Yeah.
think perhaps too, it's possibly the right moment in time, right? Because I mean, what I love about what you're doing is you're teaching other people how to do this, so then they can then pass it on to others.
Yeah.
What I mean by that, perhaps the right moment in time, is that, just with the way that science and the media and everybody is like with materialism now
Yeah.
and how they want to shut everything down. I love that you're pushing through that, and you're teaching people a different way to do that. Because I feel like in the past, perhaps humans had a better sense of what reality really is than we do now.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. I don't know. It's always been hard times on Earth for humans.
It's
I
true.
mean, maybe there was some Shangri-La society somewhere where people were respectful, and the psychopaths didn't run the institutions. But that's sort of where we live now, where it seems like an insane asylum run by some of the sickest, craziest people that there are, but it's what it is. So I'm doing what I can to make a little dent. And if I can get this documentary out there the way I think I can, maybe it can make more than a little dent. Maybe it can actually, oh, here's the secret of the documentary. Everybody watching it will have learned how to cause spontaneous postural alignment without touch. And so no matter how much the critics and the skeptics pan the thing, there'll be hopefully a lot of Twitter And Instagram people say, no, I just did it. Look at this. See the hips like this. And now it's like this. And it's like 2 seconds later, they can say what they like. But when the people lead, perhaps the leaders will follow. So however much it gets panned and pushed aside, I'll just kick back and let the aftermath take care of itself, as long as we can get some visibility to it. So I'm hoping, like I said, to get like someone like Lex Friedman, who is so connected to so many top people, Elon Musk and everybody who's anybody. He's really connected. And he's always asking the question, what is consciousness? Do you think love is a force of nature? Do you think maybe consciousness is the fifth force of nature? And he's asking all the right questions, but he's lost in the materialism. And he's such a good-hearted man, and he's so open-minded that he'd be able to see that he could do this. And I'm not a philosopher, but I do see dozens of implications of this. And I don't want to philosophize about anything. I say, well, it's practical, it's happening, it's real. You tell me what it means. Let's find out along the way. But if the mind is not confined to the brain, the death of the brain does not necessarily mean the death of the mind. That not everything can be explained with math, physics, and logic, and love actually is a real force that changes the outer reality. This would change quantum theory forever. And then here's another cool one. A lot of people think that if the computer becomes sufficiently complex, it'll spontaneously become self-aware. However, I talked to programmers who are programming Sophia, the robot. I had lunch with them one day, and I said, so how do you program desire, imagination, will, intention into Sophia? Well, we don't know how to do any of those things. I said, well, I learned how to do something with life force, energy, breathing, body awareness, will, intention, projection, and choice to cause spontaneous postural alignment. How would you program Sophia to have desire, imagination, intention, and access to life force energy? Okay, they throw up their hands and say, no, we don't know how to do any of that. We don't even have to give it awareness of self. None of these computers have the self-awareness of a toaster. I make toast, therefore I am. They're zombies. They have no awareness of self whatsoever. And so all of the AI systems, they're just creating zombies. There's nobody there. There's nobody who's a scratching.
Perhaps you need consciousness to be aware.
That's right. But consciousness, in my opinion, maybe call it a slightly educated opinion, is an epiphenomenon of being a spiritual being. It isn't about the complexity. Like, okay, your little hand calculator is 1/billionth as complex as your phone. However, the phone is no more self-aware than the calculator. Now imagine a computer 1 billion times better than your phone. It's still not self-aware. It has no desire, imagination, intention. It has none of the qualities that are utilized. So how do I align somebody? What I'm doing is I'm using breathing and body awareness exercises to raise my energy level. I have the imagination of the sphenoid bone behind the nose and eyes. I have the intention of moving the energy into my heart chakra. I'm projecting it from my heart chakra with intent and giving the sphenoid a little mental turn. Computer can't do any of that crap. So I called it a new Turing test. How do you know if a computer is self-aware? You know it's self-aware because if it can align somebody without human intervention, there's somebody home. And if it can't, it's a smart toaster. I make toast. It doesn't know itself at all. So this is the ultimate consciousness detector. Now, Ray Kurzweil has on many occasions saying, there is no such thing as a consciousness detector. And since we cannot detect whether the computer is self-aware or not, we must assume that if it can give us the answers to the questions, it must be self-aware. However, here's a little wrench in that gear and says, no, we can have a test, a consciousness detection test. If you can align somebody without human intervention, the computer is aware. If a child can do it, they're self-aware. Anybody who can align someone is self-aware, and anyone who can't. And if a computer, by the way, happens to get to the point where they can do it, I'll say, yeah, let's call him Larry. Let's say there's somebody there and give them human rights. However, not for the foreseeable future will that happen. Now, there may be some way of putting brains and having brains become self-aware or something and having the computers interact with the brain. I don't know. It's possible, not impossible, but not with any of the technology they're using today. It's completely ridiculous to think that they're going to take a silicon chip and give it self-awareness based on what they're doing, because they don't know, because they have to program it with yes and no answers and calculations. Well, please calculate your level of love for me. It's a ridiculous thing to ask, because love is incalculable.
That's fascinating. And now, obviously, things like mammals and animals, stuff like that, they have a conscious awareness. What
Yes.
is your take on like plants?
Well, plants, the famous book Secret Life of Plants with Tompkin,
Yes.
and it was a great book. It was a lot of fun to read, and it was a big influence on me. All matter, all animals have some degree of self-awareness. And I even think that I could, if a bonobo or a gorilla had, 500 or 1,000 year word vocabulary, I think I could probably teach it to cause alignment if it wanted to learn. I think I could. I don't know it, but I give it a try. But it doesn't take a lot of self-awareness to do this. It just takes a desire and imagination, intent, and breathing, body awareness. So it's not an intellectual capacity. That's why I think I could easily teach it to some creature that had 1,000-word vocabulary. And there have been chimpanzees and bonobos and gorillas that have actually achieved that. But I haven't had access to that opportunity. Although that would be incredible for the documentary. Oh my God. I'm just not a good enough producer to make that happen.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
But what types of clients do you work with? I'm assuming all types, because you talk about people with, financial issues, people with health issues, maybe relationship issues.
I'm not working with clients now. My primary interest is in making new discoveries, in writing books, in making a documentary primarily, and just seeing what else is possible. We have practitioners in 50 countries working with people, and we have instructors around the world teaching it. And I feel like, and what happened was when I was teaching, and we'd have all these people who could teach, people would come from all over the world to study with me. And then I would be like stealing from their classes, and they'd have like nobody come to their class, and they've been putting all this energy to get the students. And I thought, I don't need to do that. I'll just let them have their classes. So I'm not really teaching or seeing clients for the most part right now, just focusing on making the documentary and seeing if I can make another insight. And I'm completely empty on new insights right now. I haven't had a good one in a couple of years, maybe a year and a half, like a holy shit transformative insight. I haven't found those, but I'm open to it.
Is there a goal date for the documentary? Because it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's going to be called the Galileo Project. We don't have the website up yet. We've shot a couple weeks ago in LA for a week, and then I'll probably be coming back to LA in February or March, and we might travel to some other states. There's a few people I definitely want to interview in different places, and but the first part of the documentary was establishing the reality with doctors, children, high school, college students, and even professional magicians, because, maybe I'm fooling myself. Let's get a magician to learn this. And when they realize, oh my God, this actually works, and there's no setup or deception going on whatsoever. It's just like, this just works. So we established the reality of it. Now, the next part we're going to shoot will be to bring in the scientists, the skeptics, and the people who might change their mind, the people who might be open to get the this, the hardcore antagonists and the people who are open to change. And when we finally get some influential people who fully acknowledge that this is a human ability that has vast implications, then the documentary will be pretty much done. We just have to get all the animations and everything else. So I'm guessing by end of summer or fall, we should have the thing done. And then we'll just see who, can we sell it to Netflix? Who can we sell it to? We don't know yet. It might be panned. We just don't know. I just have to make it. And I'm working with one of the producer directors of What the Bleep. So we've got a good budget, and we're shooting with good green screen in a studio and doing the whole thing. But it's now a matter of just getting the rest shot and trying to get the people involved who need to be involved. We're trying to get them to show up.
That's brilliant. Absolutely. Your best definition of what reality really is?
Reality is in the eyes of the bewildered. My sense is that reality is absolutely subjective, that we live in a subjective reality, and that we filter our beliefs, attitudes, thoughts, and feelings into what we perceive. I even once knew twins, and these two women, one had a husband, and they'd buy restaurants and convert them and make these beautiful restaurants, and they'd sell the restaurants, and they had land and horses and were building their brand new house. And the other sister was on welfare and working under the table at a restaurant and just barely getting by. And the one that was unsuccessful said, Mom always used to say, you girls are never going to amount to anything. And the older one said, I don't remember Mom's. And the other one said, I don't remember Mom ever saying that. And there they were in the same family with the same reality, but they had completely different attitudes and emotions and a life that supported their viewpoint. So there's so much to be aware of. And most people just assume that their beliefs are true. And when you assume your beliefs are true, you're right, because they'll keep happening over and over again. They'll keep reinforcing themselves. So what is reality? Reality is a hologram of our beliefs, attitudes, thoughts, and feelings, choices, and decisions that's being reflected back to us. We're living in the illusion, but it's a very real illusion. And like I said in that short poem thing, the more you suffer, the more real it becomes. So if you're walking with a broken leg in the snow, getting back to civilization, it's way too real. But if someone's stroking your back on the best day of your life and you're floating, it's like a dream. So what we find is that suffering always feels very real. But the more you get closer to your spirituality and your true identity of being a spiritual being, the more unreal it seems, the more it seems like it's a dream and we are floating. So we're here to evolve, we're here to grow, we're here to become ourself. And our homework is the work we do to go home again spiritually. So it's how do you heal yourself? So like you can make little decisions like, okay, I just want to improve my health and lifestyle 1% a week, 2% a week. So by the end of the year, I'm 50 to 100% better than I am now. I'll make a tiny choice. I'll never have that again. Okay, great. Easy choice. I'm just never going to do that again. I'm always going to start doing a little bit more of this. Okay, great. Simple choice. Make tiny choices. And after 2, 3, 4 years, you're vastly different than where you are now. But also make the choices to allow yourself to feel all the intensity of your emotions. Don't hold back. Don't hold back. Don't hold back. Keep reminding yourself. When I was leaving Mexico, it was kind of sweet because I started thinking about people that I loved there, and I was going to be leaving all these people that I'd met. And I just started feeling a little weepy. And I thought, well, don't hold back. So, okay, now I'm feeling like I'm crying. Okay, now I'm starting to cry. Don't hold back. And I'm crying like a baby because I'm leaving all these people that I totally love. Don't hold back. Have your complete experiences. This will tap you into your spirituality more than any guru will ever do. Because underneath all those emotions is all this love and connection to source. It's our connection because it's all love. But it's all love, and how we bury that love through incomplete emotions and feelings. It all comes back to the love. It's all the love. But because we've been so wounded, all of us, one way or another, greater or lesser degree, we don't let ourselves feel the intensity. But underneath all that pain is more love than you can imagine. And that's really what I think reality is a way to help us wake up to our true self, which is unfathomable, unimaginable, and beyond all physicality, because we're spiritual beings and we cannot die in consciousness. Our form can die, but not our consciousness. So that's how I see reality.
Wow, that's well put. That's deep, deep thoughts right there. Listen, I don't want to take up any much more of your time here. Where can we pick up your books, find your work, check you out, follow you?
Yeah, you can go to Amazon.com and look up Quantum Touch or any of the other work. And you can go to quantumtouch.com and you can find access to the seminars, the books, and everything else. So Quantum Touch. And it is a form of quantum healing, but you'll never find it with those words. You got to go with the touch word too. So it's quantumtouch.com. And then you'll see, oh, by the way, our website was emasculated by the powers that be. Our bank wouldn't do business with us anymore. They said we were making medical claims. We had to revamp the website and take off all the really exciting stuff and just make it more bland because the powers that be don't approve of these alternatives. So quantumtouch.com will get you there, and you can get the whole download, a seminar online that you can watch, or you can take live classes from different teachers from around the world. So anyway, it's all available.
Yeah, that's when you know you're onto something, when the powers that be are shutting you down. And
It's part of the game of being in this reality at this crazy time.
yes, sir.
But it really shows everybody believes their own beliefs are true, because we all have become professional virologists and we all know exactly what's true now.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for your time tonight. And I'm a fan. I'm gonna read your work and follow you.
Appreciate it very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.